Alrighty, welcome everybody to episode 4 of Not For Thought. Glad you're here. It's 11 a.m. where I am. I got some coffee, some donuts, some marijuana, and we're gonna talk about some psychedelic artwork today. But as per usual, I'm gonna take a quick hit of weed before we get started here. You should do the same, unless you're not into that. In that case, get some water or whatever, man. Just get comfortable. Drop the lighter. Alright, let's get into it. So I found it pretty hard to find really good psychedelic artwork when I first started doing psychedelics. You know, I didn't know about a lot of artists that I do now. I've made artwork myself that I wish I would have. Eventually, I started to find out about more artwork and ways of finding really good psychedelic artwork. Because, even myself, I've half-assed a lot of quote-unquote psychedelic artwork. I wouldn't even necessarily call it that, because what is psychedelic art? That can be like geometric shapes, it can be abstract, I feel like a lot goes into psychedelic artwork, colorful, shapey artwork. I don't know. There's a lot that could be considered psychedelic artwork, but yeah, so like I said, I've made some artwork myself, and I think in general, I've made some good artwork and I've made some pretty bad artwork as well. I know plenty of people that are really talented. I'm actually not in art school, but I'm taking a minor that's art. So I have a bit of experience with creating artwork, and I've seen plenty of other people create artwork in front of me, not necessarily specifically oriented towards psychedelic or geometric artwork or abstract artwork or anything like that. But, all artworks has to start somewhere. So anyway, back to my own artwork. I've been trying to create decent artwork since like the end of high school. Because in high school I kind of just half-assed it. I didn't really care that much. I wanted to make good artwork, but everything that I made was just really underwhelming and not what I wanted it to be. I was the type of person that would have an image in their head and then couldn't put it onto paper, and good artists can have that image in their head and then put it exactly how they see it in their head onto paper, or at least close. And somebody who I feel like does just an absolutely incredible job of that is Alex Gray. If you haven't heard of Alex Gray, I'd be surprised, especially if you were on this podcast already. That'd be pretty crazy. But Alex Gray is just an outstanding artist. He sets the bar for what every psychedelic artist, spiritual artist, anything of that nature, he sets the bar for what everybody should strive to be. I remember the first time that I looked at his artwork, I didn't even know that it was his, but I was on acid and I was online, I think I just like looked up psychedelic artwork, and one of his paintings came up, and I was just lost in this fucking painting. Even now I can still remember it, how it moved, and the patterns of colors that I saw just shifting through, and then seeing it sober, how much different it was, but still so amazing, but not moving because I wasn't tripping, but still incredible. Anyways, if you haven't seen any of his work, I would highly recommend looking him up. He actually has, well, I guess it's not his podcast, but he's a part of it. It's a YouTube channel called Cosm, COSM, and honestly, I think that's what my podcast channel is kind of going for. I'm not just trying to copy them or anything. I highly respect their work, and I want mine to be separate from theirs, but at the same time, they're an extremely inspirational channel to draw from, especially being an artist, being a psychonaut, or at least being into psychonautics. And Alex Gray is just an incredibly intelligent person when it comes to psychedelics, wisdom, life. The guy is just an endless pool of intelligence and wisdom and theories, and it's amazing. He's really great, and his wife is very similar. She's amazing. I love her artwork as well. The only thing that I have against her artwork is that there's not more of it. I feel like Alex Gray, I'm constantly coming across artwork that I haven't seen by him before all the fucking time. But when it comes to Allison Gray, it's basically, that's not fair, because I guess I should talk about her artwork. So she has what's called chaos, order, and secret writing. At least those are three that I can remember right now. There's probably more than that. And she has just like countless different versions of these. If you've ever heard of secret writing or not heard of it, this is going to be interesting. I found this to be fascinating when I first heard of this. Since this isn't really my story to tell, I'll just kind of sum it up briefly. Briefly. So Allison Gray was on a DMT trip, smoking DMT one time, and she saw everything covered in this alien writing that, there's no human language that this was, but she was seeing it covering all surfaces, and she ended up turning that into her artwork. She ended up combining that in with her artwork, which I think is just insanely incredible, that you can take something from a DMT trip and put it onto paper. I think that's pretty tough to do at all. But anyways, Allison Gray, also very, very intelligent person, very wise, extremely good at art. And if you haven't seen any pictures of her secret writing or her chaos and order, I would recommend looking it up, because it's the artwork that I strive to create. They're both, the Grays are incredible artists, and I feel like they would get way more credit if way more people did psychedelics. I think everybody would realize that there's really nothing that compares to Alex and Allison Gray's artwork. Nobody can compare artwork to each other. I feel like everybody has their own limits, their own goals with artwork. It's kind of weird to compare art in general. But when you're talking about psychedelic artwork, nothing tops theirs. Yeah. So I also thought I would talk about some ways of finding artwork outside of Alex and Allison Gray, or just like looking up on Google. I think Pinterest, in my opinion, is one of the best apps and resources to find psychedelic artwork, and really just artwork as a whole. There's everything on there, and same with Google, but I feel like Google frustrates me when I'm trying to find something very intricate and clear. Like, I feel like everything that's posted on Pinterest is usually very high quality too. Like, it's never blurry. It's always really easy to see, and artwork is always really incredible. And I think Pinterest is just targeted more towards artists. Maybe that's just in my experience, but I just don't think I can find artwork that I've found on Pinterest anywhere else. And I guess that can go for every app, I'm sure on Instagram and Facebook and Google and all sorts of shit probably has its own aspect of art to it. Nonetheless, Pinterest, in my experience, has given me the most incredible artwork that I don't think you'll be disappointed in. So if you haven't yet, I would recommend downloading Pinterest and just looking up psychedelic artwork. Or not even just that. Like in my last, or in the second podcast, I talked about how I like anime. And I think I think Pinterest has the best resource for finding anime artwork too. I've found so much on there of Dragon Ball and Jujutsu Kaisen that I wouldn't have found anywhere else by just looking up on Google. If there's any kind of artwork at all that you're looking for, I would start on Pinterest before anything. And if you can't really find anything on there, I would maybe go to Instagram. I think Instagram just reaches out to such a large portion of people, and you could probably pretty easily find some really good local, not local, but just like very underrated artists that are trying to make it still and aren't very well known, don't have a gallery or anything like that, and are just trying to make art to make money, to get by, you know. So since I was talking about anime, I'm sorry for anybody that's not into it, but I wanted to talk about artwork in manga. I talked about this a lot on the podcast where I talked about fictional worlds and manga in there, but the artwork, and in comics too, comics goes for this too. The artwork is just, it's hard to even find the words to describe how talented some artists are. Some people are so good at just making consistently amazing artwork. If you've ever sat down and tried to draw a person and then draw that same looking person in like multiple different ways, like facing different directions and doing different motions, it is fucking hard. Especially if you've never done it before. It takes hundreds and hundreds of drawings of doing that before you'll get good, if you're not somebody that's just naturally talented at art, because some people are. Some people are just naturally good with proportions and perspective and can just throw some lines onto a paper and they're absolutely perfect. But then there's people like me who have to like draw it, draw a line, erase it, draw it again, erase it, draw it again, erase it, draw it again, erase it until it's finally good. And other people can like do that in one try. So that's where manga and comics come in. I just find it so hard to produce even one small little section of good artwork, of good quality sound, perspective, and quality line work. That's so hard and overlooked, I feel like, with artwork in general. I feel like people don't give credit to manga artists in general and comic book artists because that shit's hard. And then you gotta take one character and repeat the exact same facial features and stuff, but in a different form. Like when the character is moving, you have to completely rearrange the features and still make it look the same as the same person. And I think people just overlook that like crazy because that shit's hard. It's hard just to make a figure like a manga or a comic book action figure, just to make it look perspectively correct and to get enough detail in there to where it doesn't just look like an outline. That can be extremely hard, you know. So anyways, I was thinking I would talk about something kind of random here. I was thinking I would talk about religious artwork. So I know a lot of people wouldn't consider religious artwork to be very trippy or psychedelic, but certain artwork in religion is, in my opinion. I guess maybe it's more of a spirituality than a psychedelic aspect to it. I'm not sure. But I spent my first semester of junior year of college studying, what was it? It was basically history of art, and I just had to like look at artwork made by old ass people and write about it. I honestly kind of liked the class because it was pretty easy. All I had to do was look at a piece of art and then write like 100 words about it and then submit that. And that was like the work for the week. It was pretty easy, and I like artwork, so it was enjoyable. But I, if you've ever looked through older artwork, not even necessarily religious pieces, they're strange. Like, human figures are different in the face, like they're much more rounded, and it doesn't look quite as realistic as some artwork does today. When you look at other artwork, it can be really, really eye-opening, I guess. You know, like even in Christianity, I feel like that's what most of that class covered was, Christianity related art pieces. Or at least that's mainly what I remember. I know that it started like way back to cave drawings, which was kind of interesting to look at. Those were like the first artworks ever created were by like literal cavemen, and yeah, that was pretty cool. But then later on, just kind of focused on religious artwork, and I found some of it to be pretty fascinating. I can't remember. I think I think it was Albrecht Dürer. If you look up his artwork, I believe he was a religious artist, and he made some really, really good pieces. He pops up a lot, honestly, for somebody that I wouldn't expect to get much recognition anymore. I hear quite a bit about him in the art community because his artwork was so intricate and so fucking detailed. I mean, just packed with figures and people and objects. And yeah, I think there was a lot of religious artwork that he had, but I would recommend looking him up. Albrecht Dürer, Albrecht. Dürer. Hopefully I spelled that right. I'm sure you guys will get there if you really are curious. He is a pretty big artist, even though he's long gone. Anyways, rest in peace, man. Yeah, so religious artwork. What else could I talk about that? Well, I guess I could talk about Hinduism. Hinduism, holy shit, has some incredible artwork. And not even just artwork, like the sculptures, the dresses, and just the whole culture that surrounds Hinduism fascinates me. And the same goes for Buddhism as well. But when I think of artwork with religion, I feel like Hinduism is something that quickly comes to mind. Because, like, right now, I'm looking at my wall, and my wall is packed. All of my walls, even my ceiling, has tapestries and posters and shit just covered everywhere on my walls. I'm in a studio apartment, so it's kind of expected. But anyways, I have 4 art pieces of Hindu gods. I think 3 of Shiva, and I don't know. Oh, actually, I think that one is Buddha. Oops. Anyways, but I have a tapestry of Shiva. I have a drawing of Shiva. I also have another picture of Shiva. If you can't tell, I really like Shiva. I hope I'm saying his name right, but this one time I was it was called Nepal Tibetan Imports in Fort Collins in Colorado. It's honestly a really cool store if you're into anything Hinduism related. I just find Hinduism to be fascinating. Maybe that's just me, but I see this podcast is gonna like turn into Hinduism. No. Yeah, the artwork though that I have on my wall is actually from that store, and I would highly recommend going there and just looking at some of the artwork. And the sculptures and the statues, it's really intricate and things that I couldn't even imagine creating. I mean, that's kind of just the human culture in general. Is just I don't know, I find everything to be fascinating, even this podcast. Maybe I just underestimate myself, but I didn't think I would even be able to do this, and I can do this. And I don't know, I'm rambling. I just find it to be interesting that humans have created so much from nothing, when we used to be cavemen who would, just kind of mercilessly fight each other. And, well, I could be wrong on that. But I feel like we were probably pretty mean to each other way back then, right? You know, when humans kind of first came around, I feel like men were probably very territorial and not very friendly. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyways, I'm hella rambling. Back to artwork and Hinduism. Hinduism just has incredibly colorful and well made artwork. I watched this documentary on philosophy, and it actually covered Hinduism as a whole. And one part, I saw this festival. Shit, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I saw this festival in this documentary, and it was just incredible. I mean, fuck, I keep saying incredible, I'm sorry. I noticed that a lot of times I repeat so many fucking words on these podcasts where I'll just be like, oh, dude, it's so incredible. Oh my gosh, it's incredible, it's incredible. Alright, anyway. So this festival, it's just looks like human culture at its finest. Like, people just looked so happy. Everybody looked so lively. It was so colorful. So many different dresses. And I don't know. It's just interesting to look at how detailed clothing in Hinduism is. If you ever get the chance to look up this documentary on philosophy, I think it was on YouTube. Yeah, sorry if you're not into Hinduism as a religion or at all. I'm not necessarily trying to put religious views out there, I guess, but I don't necessarily consider myself to be a Hindu for a lot of reasons, but mainly because I just kind of like to learn about it rather than necessarily follow the religion itself, I guess. And I do the same thing with Buddhism. I've read a lot about Buddhism, I've watched documentaries about Buddhism, and I wouldn't consider myself a Buddhist because I think that takes a lot more work than what I do. Not to mention, I find Hinduism and really all religion to have fascinating aspects to it. But Hinduism and Buddhism, I find myself closest to, if that makes sense. But I'm thinking I'm gonna call this good here. I know I rambled on a bit, but that was kind of the idea. I'm surprised I haven't done that more, honestly. Yeah, thanks for listening. This has been Not for Thought, episode 4. Smoke some weed, and have a nice day.